Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Leading Edge Cricket Podcast. Today, it is the England Watch England Cricket Podcast. It's Rob, it's Rich, back from his time in Manchester, and we are getting stuck into the continuous depth chart we're working through. We've done the openers, we've done number 3, we've done the middle order, and now we are taking the gloves, Rich, and we are getting stuck into Wicketkeepers. How are you?
I'm good. I'm waiting for Ben Stokes to announce something that means that whatever we talk about today is going to be completely irrelevant after what he did with the same Root's moving to 4 and he's moving to 6. So we don't need a 3 and a 5 anymore, obviously. Or we do need a 3 and a 5. We don't need a 4 and a 6. Ruined it.
We don't. I did put on Twitter just before we started this, about an hour before, and said, look, any hot takes on Wicketkeepers in the country? And the best comment was Ben Foakes, ... end the podcast there. And that is it.
Done.
So, Ryan Evans, end of the podcast. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll get to it. You have to wait till the end. Sorry.
Exactly. So we've had good fun doing this so far. And I think the Wicketkeepers actually was a little bit harder than some of the other positions. Because, you know, if you're talking about openers, there's always 2 openers in your team. And there's no reason you're going to be carrying more than one genuine wicketkeeper who's filling the role of wicketkeeping in your starting 11. So it does pose a few problems, and England have shuffled the cards a few times over the previous years.
Yeah. I think there's a lot more names than I expected us to be discussing today. So we're doing a top 10, aren't we? But we have got some honourable mentions as we like to do, because we're so indecisive. We can't just keep it to a 10. We have to bang some more names in. If we get everybody's name mentioned here, at some point we'll be right with who gets to go. So, you know, I mean, that's a little bit of a sneak behind the curtain, I'm sure. But
yeah, exactly. We actually just sat here for 20 minutes with 2 completely different lists trying to work out how we end up with 10. And we had about 16 names going on. So we'll start off with the honourable mentions. And we've put the honourable mentions this time into 2 categories, really. One, you've got the guys who we genuinely probably don't think are going to go on and play for England, but are fine performers either with the bat or with the gloves, Rich. And the first one is a Worcestershire man you are very, very high on. High on life.
Yeah, so this is the 3, isn't it, that we think, look, you know, they've not quite made the list. There's nothing wrong with them as cricketers, excellent players, but we just don't quite think they're there. And when we talk about this list, it's not just us thinking this is what we would do. This is a list of players we like, but also what we think England will do. So we don't think these guys are going to be in the top 10, but let's get through them. Ben Cox, I think he's a fantastic cricketer. He's a 30-year-old Worcestershire. He's been just exceptional for a number of years. 139 first-class matches, 5,290 runs, 4 centuries, 124 high score with an average of 27.4. That's probably what's going to hold him back a little bit. I'll rattle through these 3 names, Rob, and then you have a little say as well. But that's probably for me. But he's an exceptional keeper, really good leader as well. Adam Rossington, he's now over at Middlesex. Is that right?
Essex.
Right, I got the bit at the end.
You got the sex.
It was Northamptonshire, wasn't it? I blame Cricinfo. They haven't updated it. I was like, well, I'm sure he's not there anymore. But obviously, he finished at Northamptonshire, didn't he? Really good record. 35 average, 95 first-class appearances, only 7 centuries. I thought there'd be more for Rossington. So I think, again, batting's probably holding him back a little bit. But as a keeper, very, very good. And somebody that's not yet ready to play for England because he's not allowed. And that's the Johannesburg-born Ricardo Vasconcelos, the Northamptonshire keeper captain. Another one, 35 average, 56 appearances so far, 700s. These lads like to get 700. So that's the first 3, Rob, of the honourable mentions.
And I like the way there's a couple of ongoing jokes on this podcast. One, every single week I will shoehorn Kevin Peterson into the conversation, which I did on yesterday's podcast, Rich.
And like you've just done now.
Like I've just done now. He's made his way in. Not relevant to wicket-keeping whatsoever, but he's there. And the other one is Rich always has to say Ricardo Vasconcelos because it's a beautiful looking name. I think they're 3 very reasonable just options, honourable mention, what they are. Adam Rossington averages 39.33 over the last 3.5 years since the start of 2019. That is very good, but only 2% of his outs equate to a score of 100, which is incredibly low. That's what holds him back. Ben Cox, excellent gloveman, plays at New Road, so probably should average a lot higher, but only averages 29 over that period, and none of his stats, batting statistics, analysis, leap out at being anything better than just a really good county cricket player. and the stats that I kind of compare them to when I look for a wicketkeeper is you kind of want them to be a top 6 quality player in county championship cricket to be able to go on and play test cricket. And these guys aren't. One guy that might be Ricardo Vasconcelos, that's the third time his name has been mentioned. He's only 24, left-hander, opens the batting as well, Rich. His average is above league average. He averaged 36 over the last 3.5 years. Very cold this year. Might have been a little bit better than just an honourable mention, but he has been cold with the bat this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And until he gets that documentation, we can't really get too much more excited about him, apart from me saying his name every single week. So another 3 up-and-comers, honourable mentions before we hit the top 10, Rob. And these are 3 younger players that we think have got a real great future. And it might be that they've got a future, a couple of these lads, as batsmen rather than keepers. But they certainly can keep, and there's certainly options to keep an eye on. So the first one is Jordan Cox of Kent, 21 years old. Just 24 matches so far, 1,300 runs, 35 average, 2 centuries, 5 half centuries, but a top score of 238 not out, which he got in one of his first appearances. So he's a talent. Jamie Smith, we can't go too far without talking about Jamie Smith of Surrey. 21, 29 appearances, 1,600 runs, 234 not out, top score very recently, 500s, 450s, average of 41. That's exceptional. He's somebody that sooner rather than later will be in the conversation for this England team. It doesn't even have to be the wicketkeeper position, I'm sure. Obviously, there's a certain Ben Foakes ahead of him in the Surrey pecking order as well. And over in Derbyshire, we have a Manchester-born, but he only spent some time in Australia, ex-Australia under-19s, is Brooke Guest of Derbyshire. 19 appearances, 852 runs at an average of just under 30, 300s and 150 though. And he's starting to hit the ground running this year as well, isn't he? So 3 promising young players, 3 honourable mentions, Rob. Over to you again.
Very good players. And the thing is that these guys have got over the guys we mentioned previously is time. Brooke Guest, 24. Jamie and Jordan, they're only 20. I'm on first name terms with them as well. 21 years old. All bat righty. Very, very exceptional cricketers. All have started the season very reasonably as well, as you've mentioned. Brooke Guest, those 2 incredible centuries against Glamorgan on a Derbyshire team that's averaging the most in county championship cricket this year. Jamie Smith, his batting is only going to get better and his average is only going to get better while he's spending time batting at Surrey. That's always a bonus. And Jordan Cox is on there because we appreciate his batting. We think he's going to be a very good player. Might struggle for the gloves a little bit during that period of time, but they're definitely ones that we've got our eye on. And over the next 3, 4, 5 years, you're going to be able to see how their careers kind of pan out. But they're not quite on the same level as the top 10, Rich.
Absolutely. And this is the thing with this top 10 as well, before we jump in, there's a few lads in their 30s. Not saying that's over the hill, but it's, as we say, it's a little bit sneaky old, isn't it? Give it another year or so, and those 3 young lads, you would expect them to hit on the list. However, Jordan Cox, he doesn't have the gloves usually, does he, for Kent? There is somebody else that does, and we're going to get to him very, very soon. But let's kick it off. Number 10 then, Rob. Michael Burgess, Warwickshire, 27-year-old keeper batter. Had a good summer so far, hasn't he? 57 appearances, 2,864 runs, a high score of 178. Average of 36, 5 centuries, 13 half centuries. A decent keeper. What do we think? Is he a right man to be kicking off this number 10 list?
I think he is. I like the way he goes about his business. His runs this year have been absolutely brutal. 178 versus Surrey, 170 versus Essex. They're generally 2 pretty good bowling attacks and 2 teams that's in the upper tier of the County Championship Division 1 table, and he went and took them apart, and he went from 100 to 170 in those games very, very quickly. Epsom boy, which is quite interesting, spent time at Surrey, came through their academy, 13s, 14s, 15s, 17s, played Leicestershire 2s, played Surrey 2s, and finally got a shot at the big time playing at Warwickshire. All he can do is keep doing what he's doing. And he's had an excellent start to the season. His average over the last 3 years is about 33, which is okay. It's slightly below the average of a top 6 player in the county championship. And for those watching on YouTube on screen, I had a look at what it means in test match cricket, because whoever's the wicketkeeper has to be able to go on and play test match cricket and average a decent amount. And the average for a wicketkeeper in test match cricket since the start of 2017 is 31. So you need these guys really to probably be averaging 35, 36 in county championship cricket and hopefully have enough about them to make the way up. Burgess isn't quite on that level, and having a depth chart of 10 wicket keepers, it's it's quite a lot of wicket keepers to keep your eye on. So he's at number 10. Fair play to him. He's had a cracking start to the season. He deserves it.
Absolutely. Number 9, let's get Ollie Robinson. We spoke about this another man at Kent, and this is the man, isn't it? And it's the other Ollie Robinson. We haven't lost our marbles. We haven't absolutely lost our mind in putting a bowler in as a wicketkeeper. This is 23-year-old Ollie Robinson. Oliver George, to give him his full name. 40 first-class appearances, just shy of 2,000 runs, 143 high score, 32-ish average, 4 centuries, 9 half-centuries, 125 catches so far. Ollie Robinson at number 9, the young Kent-ish-man.
Good player. Very, very good player. Good, yeah, very good player. Good glove
analysis.
23 years old. He's got plenty of time on his side. He's going to have a lot of keeping to do. His average over the last 3 or 4 years, Rich, is 33.5. So he's probably about county championship average, top 6 sort of player, maybe just a little bit lower than that. He has just come good in a game against Yorkshire, but there was a lot of runs. But there's a lot of runs this year, so you can't pick and choose where you score your runs. You've got to play whatever's in front of you. 58, 85 not out against Yorkshire. That's a fine effort after a slow start. Finished the championship well last year, scoring 112 in his final innings. I think he's probably on an England selector's radar at some discussion, and you might see him involved in Lions cricket at some stage, keeping wicket over the next few years. But 23, he's doing the right things. He's looking good with the bat. He's looking good with the gloves, and he's getting plenty of game time as well.
Definitely. Okay. So number 8, I'm not going to say his name first, Rob, but I'm going to give you his stats. So he's 162 first-class appearances, 4 runs over 9,000 first-class runs, an average of 40.74, 23 centuries, 45 half-centuries, high score of 163. Now, he is 33, but before I say his name, looking at those stats on its own, you assume this man must have played some cricket for England, don't you?
Yep.
Yes. Well, he hasn't, and it's a travesty. It's Ben Brown, he ex of Sussex, who's now moved across the coast, hasn't he, to Hampshire. I don't understand how he's never got a game in any format for England. He's been one of the most consistent leading batsmen in first class in county cricket, red ball cricket, for a number of years, and he does not have an England cap. Just explain this to me and tell us why he's in this list as well.
I still can't, mate. I still can't. All you can try and work out is who's kept over the last 10 years. Johnny Bairstow's had the gloves for 49 test matches over that period of time. And there was a time where Johnny Bairstow was averaging, near on 40 in test match cricket at one point. Yeah. He still averages 35, which is better than a top 6 average player. So it's really hard on him because you watch him play and he's absolute quality. And we actually spent 5 minutes before the podcast going, I think he's higher than 8. And there's a reason we'll talk about who's number 7, but it took us a while to align on the list. Over the last few years, Rich, he has, before this weekend just gone, because I've not updated my stats, but he had the most amount of runs in county championship cricket from 2019 to 2022. That is some going for a guy that keeps wicket. And we have been an England team that have chopped and changed. We've gone through Foakes, Bairstow, Billings, Bracey, Pope. I almost got a call for the gloves at one stage. They were that short. So it's
you didn't.
It's no, you didn't. It's miraculous. I've seen you keep. I've seen you keep.
Yeah.
It's miraculous.
I'm ahead of you in these rankings, all right.
It's miraculous. He's never got to go. I gave him a performance rating of basically 3rd on this list in terms of quality over the county championship period over the last 3.5 years. It's hard on him. He's number 8 on the list. If we went through a whole series of injuries, he would get a go because they'll probably believe that he's good enough to come and make an impact with the bat, probably at 7. But chances are probably time's not on his side. Yeah,
but this is the point as well, isn't it? When we say how has he not represented England at some format, he's not just his wicketkeeper. It's not like, he can only get in the team's wicketkeeper and therefore he's had Butler, Bairstow, etc. ahead of him. He's a middle order player as well. He can play where you need him to play. There's not been many batters in county cricket as good as this man or as consistent as this man over the years, but for some unknown reason, he just hasn't got to go. Now, the next man up, John Simpson of Middlesex. Now, I'm not blaming him, but he got himself 3 ODI caps last year, and it's probably just linking and finishing the Ben Brown conversation. Ben Brown was probably the man last year when we were going, is there nobody else? What about Ben Brown? But John Simpson got the game, and fair play to him, wasn't it? During the COVID times when everybody was in... What was it called, Rob? I forgot what it's called. Not lockdown. When everybody's
isolation.
Isolation, that's the one. It's been a long weekend, all right, everybody. I apologise for any of these missteps, sleepyhead. So yeah, John Simpson, 33. Like I say, he's played for England, which is why we've got him at this point in this list. We think, again, age-wise, maybe he's probably a little bit lower down, but England did have him on their radar. New setup, as we know, Rob Key era, but he still warrants to be on there, doesn't he? Because of his recent inclusion. So 176 matches, 77 even, 7,748 runs, 167 not out high score, 32.5 average, 844 half centuries, and a mammoth 544 catches and 29 stumpings just for that little cherry on top. So John Simpson, age, again, is going to be against him, but he's somebody I think will just still be hanging on in those in the mind of the selectors, whoever they may be.
You know, he's doing nothing wrong to help his cause. Back-to-back 71s over the last 2 weeks, 104 the week before that against Glamorgan. He's having an exceptional championship year, mate. He's just a good player. He averages 37.5 over the last 3.5 years since the start of 2019. That's exceptional and puts him better than a county championship average player by 10%. And he started this year even better. He's averaging 90 odd with the bat. Do I think that England are going to go to John Simpson? Right. Let's take the scenario that there's a mass outbreak of COVID-19, whatever variant it wants to be, and everyone that's in like a 20-man bubble or whatever it is. So the Foakes, Bairstows, Billings is in the IPL, Brace is down, Pope's down, Butler doesn't want to play. We've basically come to number 7 on the list and gone, we think they'll call John Simpson above Ben Brown, Ollie Robinson, Michael Burgess, all those guys. They've trusted him enough, similar to a James Vince sort of thing. They trust him enough to come in and play white ball cricket and believe he's good enough to play that sort of standard. He'd get a call in that stage, and he'd probably get it above Ben Brown, like you said, because England have already given him the call previously for different formats. Yeah,
and that's the thing. That's the only logic we're using, isn't it? So, excellent cricketer. He's been an absolutely incredible servant, hasn't he, for his county? But, you know, he's still there or thereabouts. But I think this is where we're starting to come into it now, isn't it? We've got a top 5, and then we've got a man just outside the top 5. And I think this top 5, when we get to it, is going to be that's it, unless there is some crazy situation where we need to look past that. But that top 5 is a lot. And it's pushed a certain man to number 6, Rob. And he's still on the list because I think if it gets past that top 5, I think his phone will be buzzing. And that's because he's a good mate of them all, isn't he, as well as a decent cricketer. And that's Josh Butler. Josh Butler, he's 31, pushing 32 now. 57 test match appearances, just under 3,000 runs, 32 average, give or take. Only the 2 centuries in his test career, Rob. But first class, getting on to 6,000 first class runs, 7 centuries for him. So Josh Butler is there at number 6. Him of IPL, white ball stardom. Ram Prakash don't rate him as a test cricketer. I think this is probably the fair point to put Butler because he still hasn't said he's no longer available for selection.
He hasn't. So he's not ruled himself out. He's not retired. He's just dropped. Assumably, he didn't perform well in the Ashes, and they've gone in a different direction, and it's not him. Assumably, he wanted the break as well because a lot of players didn't want to tour the West Indies for the white ball stuff, and fair play to him. But he has gone to the IPL, happy place IPL, and he's scoring a lot of runs. He's the best player in the competition by a country mile. When it got to the end of the 5th test of the Ashes, we both sat here and we said, Josh, go have some fun. Find your happy place, score some runs, do what you enjoy, make money for your fan hour, and you'll be absolute great, mate. You'll have an awesome time doing it.
Yeah.
There's been nothing. He's kept it wicket for England 37 times, Rich. Bairstow's done it 49 times. 2,907 runs, average of 31. He's on line with being an average, just above average wicketkeeper in Test cricket. Now, why can't we just accept that if he goes there and he averages 31 for the rest of his career and he's average, but he'll have moments where he's exceptional and do something incredible. Why isn't that good enough? I've been thinking about this the last few weeks, and I don't know why it keeps me awake at night thinking about wicketkeepers for England and the expectations that they should average 40, because there's only been a few in history that can do that, and there's only a few now like Rishabh Pants that can do it. Why do we expect something greater?
Yeah, it's a fair shout, isn't it? But then it's that thing, isn't it? There are other players that deserve an opportunity. If you're going along at average, Yeah, fair enough. I mean, at the moment, England are an average test side, so you should be satisfied with everything being average. But if you want to become a little bit better than average and push on a little bit, why should we settle for average? You've got to try and chase that better performance somewhere, haven't you? And if you've given someone a long period of time and they've hit back as average, then at some point there's going to be somebody in county cricket going, why can't I ever go? I could do at least that. So why is he getting a go every time? He's a good mate. You know, that's what they'll be thinking. Does he deserve to stay? Yeah, he's talented, but he's only average. So I just think you've got to try and push past that. It's a bit like the openers, isn't it? You know, you give all these guys, you give the Rory Burns, Dom Sibley, 20, 30 test matches. Well, they've come back and delivered average. Zach Crawley at the minute is delivering average. Is it time to look for somebody else? I'm not saying it is or not, but you know what I mean? I think it's just, let's look past it. Let's see what else we can do. Roll the dice, Rob. Roll the dice. So top five,
I think
then.
What we're saying is there is a world where Josh Butler gets a call if something happens. If there's a breakdown, lockdown, isolation, whatever, there is a world where he gets a call this summer.
And that's only if these next 5 people are completely unavailable.
Yeah.
It's what it's like in a cricket season. There's a wedding, someone's got a barbecue on one weekend, someone's doing something else.
Last game of the football season.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're down to numbers, aren't you? So right, top 5. Right, this man is not necessarily wicketkeeper. He's certainly not first choice for his county. He might not even be second choice for his county. But he is Ollie Pope, Rob. He is Oliver John Douglas Pope. He's 24. We know plenty about him. 23 test matches so far, 1,000 runs. First class, 4,500 runs. He is the finest first class batter in county championship batter. 51 average, 1,300, 1550s, Rob. He can catch, but I don't know how many of those are wicket keepers. You might be able to tell me. A good player. The man can keep. He's done it at a pinch, hasn't he, in the test side already? Why don't we look at Ollie Pope as a wicket keeper? Why don't we bat him down at 7? Perhaps behind Mr. Stokes.
Yep.
Might be the problem solved.
They're all fair calls. I think just look at county cricket to start with, and there is no better player in county cricket, or hasn't been for years, since Rampakash was probably at his peak. Ollie Pope averages 75 over the last 3.5 years at a strike rate of 68. Putting it in context, the 3-year rolling average is 33 for a top 6 batsman. He is 123% better than an average county cricketer. I was listening to Ben Jones on the Wisdom podcast, and he was talking about his control rates of middle in the ball is off the charts compared to anyone else. So there's obviously something there. It's just not clicked at the top level. And the rationale for having him at 5, because people might go, you can't put Pope in this list. Well, the rationale is you've got a guy who you believe he's good enough to go and play Test cricket. At the moment, he's not got a chance of averaging 40 for a long time. He's averaging 28 from 23 Test matches. He has got 100. I think it was against South Africa. We go back to Wicketkeepers average 31. I believe Ollie Pope is good enough to average 31 in Test cricket. I believe Ollie Pope's good enough to go and average 40, 45 over his career in Test match cricket, looking 6 years down the line. If you give him the gloves and he bats at 7 in that role, the pressure is gone around, hey, you need to be a top 5 player. We need you to average 40. And you're just kind of removing that pressure away from him. Sure, it gives him more to concentrate on his game, and he's involved more. But I believe he's good enough. He's fit enough. And he's an excellent player. It could be a way to blood him in, to keep him going, to get him the experience and really get him rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a compelling case I think we've put together, and it's our list. So if we want him in our list, we'll have him in our list. I think that's how we can get him in our list. Comment
below. If you are adamant, Ollie Pope should not play Test cricket,
him out the list.
Comment below and let me know why, because you've got to. I would have recalled Mark Rampakash at 35 to England, so maybe I'm not the right guy to be having this conversation.
You're definitely not the right man. Definitely not the right man. Pope will at some point play Test cricket again. Whether he plays it as a keeper is a question. Whether he comes back this summer as a batsman is a question. He deserves the opportunity again because of the sheer talent and the ridiculous stats he's putting up every year in first-class county cricket. But does he deserve to be in straight away? That's the other question. As for the wicketkeepers, there are 4 blokes ahead of him, including one that's got the gloves at the moment, who are saying, stop talking utter nonsense. Of course, Ollie Pope's not going to get the gloves at number 7 because I should have the gloves. And the first man saying that is James Bracey. He's 25, isn't he? He's a Gloucestershire keeper. He only had 2 Test matches. We're not going to talk about that, but he has had 58 first-class appearances, 3,265 runs, a high score of 177, an average of 35. 9 centuries, 14 50s. The man bats at the top 3, so he's easily what we like to describe as a top 6 batter. He bats at 3 for crying out loud. James Bracey, the time must be close again when he can get that opportunity. And is 4 a little bit low for him in this list?
I don't think it's low. I think...
Okay. Fine.
It's like the Ben Foakes is the keeper. End of podcast. I don't feel like it's low because I don't feel like he goes and averages enough. Although his glove work is good, I feel there's better bats that's going to come above him in this list. Is my opinion. He averages 35 over since the start of 2019. He started this season red hot, absolute red hot. 117 versus Northants, 177 versus Yorkshire. Are you watching someone from... Joe Root's not captain anymore, so probably no one was watching that's relevant. But since then, he's gone 5, 14, 0, 0, 2. And this is James Bracey's problem. He does get out early, more often than an average county championship cricketer. In fact, 14% more than a county championship cricketer on average. And that's his problem. So we spoke about him in the top 3 list. We spoke about him in the middle order list. And I came back to, on the top 3 list, was I don't believe he's a good enough bat to bat at 3 for England at the moment. Batting at, if your wicket keeper's at 7, it's a completely different conversation. He's a very, very talented cricketer at I don't want to use the word unpopular, but he's not a popular county for getting attention. And no. But he has scored runs against Northants. He has scored runs against a good Yorkshire attack that had Harris Ralph in it. And I think Matthew Fisher was playing that game as well. And Don Bess would have been playing that game as well. So he's got oodles of ability. He's only 24 years old. He's, same age as Ollie Pope. We go, Ollie Pope's so young. James Bracey is 24 as well. They're the same age.
Yeah. He's somebody that needs to be talked about, simple as, because, he has played Test cricket relatively recently. Yeah. He is scoring some runs. He's a top order player. He ticks a lot of boxes. There's a huge question mark for me based upon what happened to him when he did play Test cricket. He just seemed to be overwhelmed by it. You would hope, again, we spoke about going away and developing that resiliency, and it's another attribute that you can then take when you come back into the Test arena. And I'm sure that he will have done all that. The support that they have now, from the sports scientists, the coaches, obviously the technical side, but also the sports psychologist side of things.
Yeah.
Again, resiliency is a skill that you can develop. And there's lots of techniques that you can develop around those things. And he's had the experience, so he knows what it takes now. But I think he's about where he needs to be, I think, on this list. And I think that's fair.
Yeah, he's probably in the position where he may get a call. If things fall apart this summer, people don't perform, he's on the list. He's not on speed dial, but you've swiped right on him at some stage. Wow, that's bringing Tinder to the cricket podcast.
Ooh, okay, right. Mr. Billings, Sam Billings, he have one Test match. Is he going to be a one-cap wonder? That's going to be one question for you, Rob. The 30 runs, a high score of 29 in those 2 innings so far. He's played 25 ODIs, 37 T20 internationals, only 75 first-class appearances in total, 3,500 runs-ish, just under, 33.9 average, 171 high score, 6 centuries, 15 50. It's 178 catches, 11 stumpings in that time. And of course, he's Kent as well, isn't he? Kent captain. Kent love a wicketkeeper.
They do. We've got 3 on our list altogether.
That's ridiculous, isn't it? So Sam Billings, he is somebody that got the Test match. He got himself a nice little rental, drove up the east coast of Australia, listened to a bit of 90s indie, probably, I can imagine. And he got the opportunity. But then he took himself off to the IPL at the start of the summer rather than leading Kent and pushing Ben Foakes for that position in the England team. I'm still a little bit confused by that. I think Sam Billings is an exceptional player, really good keeper, great character, great leader. And fair enough, money. People love money. And I'm not saying he's different to anybody else, but I just wonder if he might have been thinking, things are changing. It's going to be a new captain probably. There's going to be a new coach soon. It's going to be a new selector. I wonder if I should be back home smashing some runs in the county championship just to push my name up that order a little bit.
Yeah. And you would have hoped he'd had these conversations with England and not just made them in isolation and going, hey, look, there's a chance I'm going to get some good money in the IPL. Is that a problem? Does that affect my Test selection? And he, you've no idea what the conversation are. England might have gone, yeah, it will. And he goes, oh, well, I probably won't play that much. I'm going to go and cash in while I can and get some good money.
Yeah.
Or it could be England turn around and go, well, the IPL is an exceptionally high standard. You're going to face world-class players, different conditions, rub shoulder with greatness, and have a good time doing it. So not quite sure what the outcome would be of that.
No. But just to quickly put on that as well, but because he must have known, he must be able to see down the line that everything was changing. The only captain was the only thing we didn't know if it was changing or not. But when you see how much is changing, you would say, well, even if I've been given assurances one way or the other from who's around now, it doesn't mean to say that they'll have any say whatsoever in 2 or 3 months' time by the time I finish the IPL. So someone might look back and go, well, Billings, he was in the IPL, so I can't think about him at the moment. Yeah. Unless you're Ed Smith, and then that's how you do get a game for England if you have played IPL or T20 cricket. But
Adil Rashid didn't get picked in the IPL, but Ed Smith is about to give him a call to come back and play Test match cricket for England. Everything you said about Bracey is true. Billings. I think he's worth more than one Test match as an England player, as an England wicketkeeper, and he is the sort of character. If he was a solidified average 35 in Test match cricket, number 7 for England, and he was the best gloveman in the country, and he was an England regular, he would have been part of the conversation for an England captaincy. He's that sort of guy. His record is exceptional in county cricket, average 44.58 over the course of the last 3.5 years. I also published on Twitter, you can find us at Leading Edge Pod, a really interesting, I did a ball-by-ball analysis, not boring at all, of basically the last 2 years, was it? It might have been 2020 to 2022, of guys who average 40 and above against pace and against spin. And he went and liked our posts, Sam Billings, thank you very much. And also, he was on the list because he averages more than 40 against pace and spin, and that's worth noting.
We got to like. I like it.
Yeah, I liked it as well. I think I sent you a screenshot going, Sam Billings is like that thing. I hope he doesn't listen to the podcast and hear what we said about him.
Shh, no comment. So that's it. We're getting close, Rob. Bracey and Billings, definitely good shouts, I think, and they're definitely people that's going to be discussed by whoever the new selectors are, whoever the new head coach is, and obviously Ben Stokes. Number 2, I think people are going to guess now where we are, aren't we? Ben Stokes said he's going to bat at 6, so therefore our demand over the last year or so is leave Johnny Bairstow at 6. Don't give him the gloves, just leave him at 6. Stop messing about with Johnny Bairstow. Well, now it's the question of, does Johnny Bairstow go to number 5? And if he does, well, that closes off an opportunity for any up-and-coming young middle-order player, Harry Brook, a little bit, doesn't it? And then you're asking for a number 3 because Joe Root's moving to 4. So suddenly, the obvious gaps are not there anymore. So Johnny Bairstow, do you play him at 5? Which I think he's going to be the number 1 option at number 5, obviously. But the other option is, do you bat him at 7? Do you give him the gloves? Do you bat him behind his captain? 32. People haven't called him young Johnny Bairstow. We call him SO Johnny Bairstow, don't we? Sneaky old Johnny Bairstow.
Yeah.
He's not young Johnny Bairstow for us anymore. But exceptional record wherever you look. I don't even need to go through it. I'm going to be honest with you, Rob. You can give me some stats on him if you want, but he's been top draw, pants and socks level performer, for his county for a number of years. Test arena, we know the conversation. He's been up and down, but that's a lot of it because he's batted anywhere from just about opener all the way through to 7, probably 8 when you've had a night watchman in. Johnny Bairstow, he has to be the next cab back off the rank. He's done his jobs and he's back there waiting for another job. If Ben Foakes at number 1, if Ben Foakes stumbles, I think Johnny Bairstow gets the gloves again. And I'm not sure I'm necessarily for it because I just want him to settle in as a test cricketer, get past his 100 test matches and whatnot, and just have a consistent run in a certain role rather than messing him around all the time.
Yeah. He averages 34 and a half as a test match cricketer from 83 test, mate. That's good. That's above an average top 6 player. It's definitely above what a wicketkeeper is. He's kept the gloves 49 times for England. That's exceptional. I feel the pressure of the selection is actually coming from Harry Brook and decisions being made about what you're doing with the lineup. If the lineup didn't change from where it was and you had Stokes at 5 and Root at 3, the conversation's different. But at the moment, you've got a hole at 3 which needs filling because Root said he's going to bat at 4. You've got a hole at 5 that needs filling because Stokes is at 6. and your wicket keepers at 7. Now, I believe Harry Brook has made himself. It's impossible not to select him. Absolutely, got to bat at 5 in England. You can't bat him high. You don't bat him at 7. So I feel your wicket keeper is going to be at number 7, and then it comes down to. Sorry, you can look at it different. You could say, okay, I'm going to bat Bairstow at 5, but then you don't bring a batsman like Brook in to play him at 7. So I think it's got to be the other way around. Then it becomes a Bairstow or Foakes conversation. Foakes is number 1 on this depth chart because he is the England keeper. I'm not convinced that Foakes is going to start the summer. However, he has been amazing in county cricket this year and has done nothing to warrant being dropped. Likewise, nor has Johnny Bairstow, who scored a century against the Aussies and scored a century in the West Indies as well. So it's incredibly difficult. Someone it feels is going to miss out along the way. Bairstow has got more tests in him. If it comes down to a complete toss-up and you've got to have one keeper in the squad, but you've got to have one of them in the squad, I feel Bairstow, for me, probably gets the nod over Foakes. But obviously, depth chart, Foakes is starting at the moment. Foakes is at 1.
Yeah, and I think, Bairstow, I think he's we've got him at 2 because we think the England selectors will be seriously considering what to do with him again, especially now Stokes has moved to 6. It creates a bit of, like you described, a bit of an issue. Because at number 3, we're not looking for a middle order player necessarily. We're looking for almost a part opener in this England lineup, aren't we? So suddenly you're only then asking for one middle order player. And at the minute, that's Johnny Bairstow. So that's your Ollie Pope position. That's your Dan Lawrence. That's your Harry Brook. Actually, 1 or 2 others that I'm sure we can talk about again. So it's a big conversation. But I think Ben Foakes is rightly at number 1, and he's waited far too long for these opportunities. He had some injury issues, didn't he, last year or so? But he when he first got his opportunity, he took it. He then got his opportunity again recently. He did okay. I know you weren't as convinced. You know, he's a little bit untidy in a few respects. But I think he deserves his opportunity, and this is his time. 130 first-class appearances, 6,614 runs, an average of 38.9. Let's just say that again, 38.9 average, okay? So this is not a keeper that bats a bit. This is a batsman that can keep as well. 12 centuries, 35 half centuries, 283 catches and 29 stumpings. Those stats hold up against anyone. And I think this is one of the things we need to realise. Ben Foakes is a batsman. He can bat. Batting him at 7, I think, is exceptional. He's got 100 or so, hasn't he? He's got himself 150 for England so far. We've got caught up a little bit sometimes. When we see the best keeper, we forget that they are a really good batsman as well. And we rather go with the batsman that can keep a bit, that people like Bairstow and Butler have developed into over the years. And they're both very good keepers now. But Foakes is not only a great keeper, he's also a really, really good, a leading first-class county championship batsman. Batting at probably 5 for Surrey generally, maybe 4 occasionally.
Yeah, he did. Last week he moved up to 5. I think he was at 6 earlier on in the season.
Yes. So he bats generally about 5, doesn't he? So I think we for fear of bringing up ghosts here, Chris Reed, because he was an exceptional keeper, he's not a very good batsman. Well, actually, yes, he was. You could hold his stats over a career up against anybody, and he was a much better keeper than batsman, that people gave him credit for, and it was an absolute disservice. And I don't want us to make the mistake with Ben Foakes. Get him in, lock him in, give him an opportunity. I know it creates issues now with Root and Stokes moving around, but this is creating real competition for places. And this is what this England setup needs, isn't it? Foakes is number 1, and he's rightly number 1 for me.
Do you think he's moved to 5 because he's getting the call going, hey, if you want to play for England, mate, you need to come into the 5 hole because that's the one that's available? Do you reckon he's had that call? Because we've noticed people throughout the season move in positions, trying to line up with the gaps in the England team.
Yeah, I'm sure there's conversations, but again, we don't know who's in charge yet. Unless Stokes is saying that, then it's not necessarily going to be Stokes' decision of who bats where. It's going to be a conversation with the coach, isn't it? The selectors are going to be putting people in as well with ideas of role, and they're not in position yet. Rob Key's in position, so he's going to be maybe getting involved. But unless he was very confident in getting the job, when he's pushing people around the lineup, I don't know. I just wonder if they were just making those decisions themselves, sitting down with coaches, agents, whoever it might be, and just saying, look, I think there's going to be gaps here this summer. Yeah. This is where I want to bat. This is where I want to show what I can bat. If you're a quality batsman at the minute, just going off topic for a second, if you're a quality, smacking runs all over the place batsman, get yourself in at 3 next game.
Yeah.
Because that's where the opening is in this England side at the moment. Unless old...
that's where the opening is. 2, 3, 5.
Well, Zach Crawley, you need to get yourself in gear, mate. So anyway, but perhaps I don't think they'll see Ben Foakes as a 5. I think he is perfectly placed at 7 as your wicketkeeper. But yeah, Ben Foakes, I think he's number 1. I think he is, and I'd love to know if people agree with that or if they think they might go down the Bairstow route.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see what people think. Comment below and let us know what your top 10 look like. We've had names given to us on Twitter as we've been going along. Ben Cox got a mention. Ben Brown, Ben Foakes. So. If your name is Ben, you've got a chance of making it on this list by all accounts. But Foakes is the right guy, and I'm glad you called out how good his bat is, because his bat is exceptional. He's averaged over 40 since the start of 2019. That's 40 if I say it in proper English. And this year, he's averaging over 100 with 300 runs on the board. He's got a century to his name. He's got a 50 to his name. 48 not out, thrown into the mixer. This year, I've got his batting rank out of Wicketkeepers as being number 3 in the country, and I've got him number 4th overall in terms of his batting ability in the country over the course of the last few years. So it's just such high regard, such good numbers. Yes, he plays at the Oval. Can't do anything about that. That's where he scores his runs. He plays away as well and obviously scores some runs there as well. So I think he does okay for himself no matter where he does. And he's probably one of those guys, he probably just needs some familiarity of playing Test cricket and a bit of belief in him. He's only had 11 times he's taken the gloves for England, 506 runs at an average of 28. Zach Crawley averages less than that, and we're still believing in Zach Crawley, so there's no point in not believing in Ben Foakes. Exceptional wicketkeeper, good bat. Just got to find the right slot in him, but he may find himself unlucky given the weight of runs some other people are scoring in the country. Yeah,
I think it'd be really difficult to justify to Ben Foakes how well he's been playing and how well he's done for a considerable amount of time, that because somebody else is doing well and the way we've rejigged the batting lineup, we've got to now play this guy back in who's touching 33, Johnny Bairstow, as a keeper again, rather than looking forward of who the wicketkeeper is going to be going forward and then working it out from there. I think we'd be prioritising the wrong way round, let's say. You need to lock in that number 7. It's a really important position. Unless you are going to say your keeper's at 5 and we're going to bring in another all-rounder. But Ben Stokes gives you that balance at 6. So, you've already got that. So I think you've got to go, Foakes. Batting at the Oval, it might just statistically it might be a little bit easier, but they're not giving him underarms, are they? That's the thing that people need to realise. It's like, yes, it's a good place to bat. I mean, more than anything, it's because it feels like the square's about a foot higher than the outfield. The ball just rolls off it, doesn't it? But he's still facing good bowling. He's still putting the runs away.
He is. And generally playing Div 1 cricket as well, which is held in high regard. For those watching on YouTube, I'm just showing from 2002 to 2022, a breakdown of grounds by month. And generally, the Oval is the best place to play. Top 6 batter will average 41.26 at that ground. With the lowest of the low being at Durham, where they'll average 30.38. And I'm sure Chris Rushworth, taking all the wickets that he's done over the last decade, has got something heavily to do with that. So, as always, just at the end, I will share the spreadsheet, which is always interesting, which talks through the players and the ones that's missed out. One guy who, we did honourable mentions, but one guy, South African Chris Cook, Rich, exceptional player, averages over 40 pretty much year on year at Glamorgan. Obviously not, or I don't think is England eligible, but exceptional player. Is there anyone else on this list that kind of takes your fancy? I see Tom Banton on there. He can keep 23 years old, highly thought of as a white ball cricketer for England, but you can see from his statistics, he's 25% worse than a county championship top 6 batter at the moment. So there's a lot of work to go on.
Yeah, there's no one else really that jumps out. I mean, Stephen Davis, a little name check, just because obviously he did play for England previously. He's been an exceptional player, but he's 35. And the Chris Cook issue, I don't know about whether or not he's qualified for England or not, but he's 35 as well. So I think we've got a couple of 33-year-olds in, but I think we're pushing a bit too far, and I think there's too many good players. You'd give a young player an opportunity against a 35-year-old, wouldn't you, I think?
You would.
There's a couple of... Ned Eckersley, I think, has done a good job at Durham. He's a decent player. He's got a good record. And I'm surprised Tom Moores isn't higher rated, considering he is an absolute lock in the Trent Bridge setup at Nottinghamshire.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say it's because his dad's in charge. I don't know. Maybe he brings the cones in. Really good white ball player, very good wicket keeper. But I'm just not convinced about him as a red ball batsman.
no, there's an average
know.
of 22 over the last 3.5 years, mate, playing at that. Yeah, that's 35% worse than a top 6 player. So he's extremely low on the list. I thought Harry Swindles is a pretty decent player at Leicestershire, 23 years old. He's got some potential about him. Averages 29 over the last few years.
Yeah.
Can score hundreds as well, which is something that's held in high regard. And Tom Alsop has had a great start to the season, can take gloves as well. See his 100 per outs ratio is above county championship average, but his average is 20% lower than county championship average as well.
Do you know one thing I'm going to take from this today, Rob, is that we're in a lot better situation for wicketkeepers than I thought we were. I think that's one thing to say. There is an absolute conveyor belt of talent coming through. There's some older guys that are still in that top 10, but there are some younger fellas following through, aren't they? If Ben Foakes does keep the gloves and for the England Test side, keep an eye on Jamie Smith, not just as a batsman, but if he can get the gloves as well. I mean, Surrey seem to have so many options that can take the gloves.
Yeah.
But if he can keep doing that, he becomes a real option. And it could be in a few years' time if Foakes has this long opportunity, this long overdue opportunity, maybe it's Jamie Smith that replaces him. Yeah. You never know. I mean, Jamie Smith might be getting himself in that middle order before. And this is the thing. There are so many talented young players knocking about. We need to stay optimistic as England cricket fans and test fans because the players are there. The only thing where we are a little short at the minute is that opener slot. Second opener slot, Lees has started really well, hasn't he? But that second opener slot and number 3 is my concern with who will get the opportunity and who will go and bat there. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Bairstow at 3, as bizarre as it might sound. Because I don't agree, because I don't want him to see him bouncing around, but he's not 6 anymore. So he's going to be 7, 5 or 3, isn't he? We're back to that game again. Where do you want to play this week? You know,
he's going to be picked, so he's got to bat somewhere from 1 to 11, and it's wide open for interpretation of where he's actually going to play. Yeah. I think that'll do us for today. That is
definitely.
We've touched on about 18 wicket keepers in the country. Gave more honourable mentions than we know what to do with. We've brought in Josh Butler in at number 6, who's not played county championship cricket at least since the start of 2019. There's no performances there in the stats that I was going through. And we've shoehorned in Ollie Pope into 4th wicketkeeper depth chart for England because his average is poor, but it might be okay for a wicketkeeper. So I think that's a fine effort. Let us down in the comments below if there's any changes, what your top 10 would look like, or if there's anyone under the radar, any young lads that we've not touched on who's got bags of potential, who hasn't quite flourished in county cricket yet. We'll be back next week for round 6 already of the county championship review. We'll be back looking at this. I think we're going to get stuck into either all-rounders or pace bowlers next time. And we're going to see you there.